Education Director for Puppet Labs. Welcome everybody to Certifiable Puppet Professional. Can I ask a question, please? How many of you here are Puppet certified? 2, 3. Okay, awesome. How many of you here have heard of Puppet certification? A few more, good. How many of you here have taken a Puppet training class? Okay. How many of you here have heard of Puppet? Oh, good. Well, I have good news for you. If you've heard of Puppet, you're all certifiable. Puppet professionals, that is. All right. So we're here to talk a little bit about the education program and certification program that I head up at Puppet, why you may want to look into Puppet certification and education. I want to share a little bit more about what is available, because we have created a whole lot of new things. What it takes to become certifiable as a Puppet professional, that is, and what certifications we are. And then at the end, I have a quiz. I'm going to ask you questions, and the people who answer it right get to wear the same t-shirt I'm wearing. Actually, not the same, but it looks the same. You get your own. So Puppet education, I don't know how many of you are aware, but Puppet education is available mostly worldwide and certainly all throughout Europe. We have a number of partners here who represent us in Europe, and as a matter of fact in the front row we've got Johan from Open Future and his team, and they'd be very happy to tell you more about Puppet education as we go along. So why invest in Puppet education? Well, this is what a client once said to me. The only thing that is more expensive or worse than training somebody and having them leave is not training them and having them stay. Okay, so I highly recommend education and having them stay to make them effective. Why invest in Puppet education? Because as you can see here from this picture from a Puppet training event in Argentina, it gives you a chance to be in the classroom, hands-on with the product and with the software, and it gives you a chance to use it and learn about it with an instructor present on site. And when you come back from that training, you really have the knowledge that you need to have to be successful with Puppet, to use Puppet's best practices, and to get everything that you want out of the product. Okay, certification, new program that we have this year. Why would you want to invest in certification? And that's because, how many of you ever feel like this, right? You talk to somebody and they give you a flowchart that is very difficult to understand at best and probably non-workable at worst. And then they expect at some point this big miracle will happen, and maybe the miracle's name is Puppet, right? You've got everything set up and now the miracle's name is Puppet, and everything works just great. Well, sometimes you just need to have a little bit more detail to have faith that that miracle will work. And certification is what helps you define that miracle box and helps you define, who can actually help me get from the spaghetti on the left side to the solution on the right side. Why specifically Puppet certification? Well, Puppet certification, I was happy to create it last year, and really what it is a certification by professionals for professionals, meaning that system administrators helped me write the exam for system administrators. And we really looked at it from a perspective not of what does it take to, to have a good exam, but what does it take to be successful? What does it have to take to be successful as a system administrator? And I worked diligently, as Jeff and Andy in the front can attest, with subject matter experts, either from system admins and professional services for the administrator certification, or from development engineers and senior services engineers for the developer certification. Everything in the exams is based either on Puppet documentation, some books, Puppet Pro, Puppet types and providers for the developer exam, or Puppet source code. Where do we have people that are interested in Puppet certification? So this is a graph of real time of everybody who has taken a practice exam for puppet certification. And so you can see that we are everywhere, including in the center of Australia, where there is supposedly nothing. But somebody's still interested in puppet certification, so. What do we have available? We have 2 tracks. We have one for system administrators and one for developers. At the foundation of everything that we do is our Puppet Fundamentals course, a new course that we released in the middle of last year. That really teaches you how to be successful using the best practice approach for Puppet. So if you're new to Puppet, you haven't heard of Puppet yet, you're wondering what's going on with Puppet, I highly recommend that course as a foundation. If you are then interested in going beyond that and extending Puppet beyond what it can do out of the box, you would go with the Puppet Developer course. That is really all about extending Puppet using Ruby, because Puppet is based on Ruby, including a short introduction to Ruby as far as it is useful for development of Puppet code. Then you have a certification exam if you're interested in certification, either for the Puppet Professional or for the Puppet Developer. And we have some continuing education, Advanced Puppet. So of those of you who've taken training in the past, we had 2 courses only. We had Puppet Master and Puppet Developer. We now have a 3rd course added to that, Advanced Puppet, that really goes beyond that, beyond the best practices into what are all the other opportunities that you have to work with Puppet. So the way that we created these courses is that we sat down with our subject matter experts and we said, what does it take to be a system administrator? And so we pulled 15 system administrators into the room and we said, what does it take to be a system administrator and how would you do it with Puppet? And what you see in front of you here are the objectives that we came up with. A list of objectives that says, well, first of all, you need to know how to install and configure a system. I think we can all agree with that. In order to do it with Puppet, you have to understand what are the components of Puppet. Then you need to understand, if you want to use Puppet, what are resources. If you've worked with Puppet, you'd probably agree that resources are kind of critical to understand if you're working with the software. You have to understand what the language are that Puppet is using. You have to understand what are modules, what is classification, what is the Puppet data library, how you do life management, and lastly, maintenance and troubleshooting. And coincidentally, these are also the objectives that we test for in the exam. So if you didn't take notes quick enough, that's too bad. Now you don't know what's on the exam. But anyway, these are the same objectives that are on the exam, are the same objectives we use to create the fundamentals course. On the developer side, we did the exact same thing. Now we sat down with developers and they said, well, in order to develop for Puppet, you need to understand what facts are. And this is not a philosophy discussion. In this case, we're talking about facts as Factor would express it in Puppet. You have to understand what functions are, types and providers, and how you can write reports for Puppet. You should understand the faces, Puppet faces, understand Ruby testing, and if you didn't have a chance, I highly recommend the last presentation we just heard because it talked about Ruby testing. Puppet integration, how to integrate what you've created into Puppet, and then understand M-Collective. And once again, these same objectives that we use to create the Extending Puppet Using Ruby course are the objectives that we test for in the certification exam. And then lastly, once you've passed the exams or once you have taken the first 2 courses and you want to have more education, these are the topics that you would find in the Advanced Puppet course. So we have classification further explained. We talk about code compression, can't say it, but we talk about it. Common patterns. We talk about data separation with Hira in more detail, and we actually do exercises on that. Virtual and exported resources, reporting and auditing, troubleshooting, and so forth, as you see on the slide there. So really go into more depth as to how you can scale Puppet for large implementations and do some of the more unusual things that perhaps you wouldn't necessarily need to do right out of the box when you only have a simple implementation. So once again, that's our continuum here for system administrators and developers. So why would you care about certification? Well, there's a number of benefits. So if you're a Puppet professional and you can say, I'm a certified Puppet professional, that helps for your resume. That helps to differentiate yourselves in the market. It helps also to know where you can develop your employment path. Right? You can talk to your employer and say, hey, I would like to have these credentials. It gives credibility, it gives you some respect for your technical expertise, and it allows you to engage in the community more fully by being able to say, hey, I'm not only somebody who knows Puppet, but I actually have passed the test that says I know Puppet. Employers like it because it reduces the time to deploy new applications if they know that somebody already knows the software. We are obviously saying that if you know the software, that your support costs should go down because you're working with somebody who knows the software. We're talking about a better competitive advantage, a reduced downtime, hopefully, right? If not, then we haven't done our job right. And we're really hoping for people who are excited about Puppet and say, hey, I'm a Puppet professional and I can tell you more about everything you can get out of it. So what does it take to become certified? There's 5 steps. First of all, preparation. In order to be certified, the only thing that is required to become certified is hands-on experience using Puppet software. So, do we have training that can prepare you? Yes, we do. Do we have books that you can read? Yes, we do. Do we have resources on the web that you can study? Absolutely. But none of those are required. So if you've been working with Puppet for a long time, you're a Puppet enthusiast, come on down and get tested. Because that's really what we want in certified people, is the experience with Puppet, not that they've been sitting through some training. Now, we do have some recommended resources. Puppet Fundamentals or the Developers course certainly help. We have practice exams available on our website, and we're going to go through some of those questions here in a few minutes. We have our documentation, our Learning Puppet VM, and some books, one of which I'm about to give away. Puppet certification, the good news is you don't have to come to Portland to take the exams. You can take the exams anywhere in the world where there's a Pearson VUE testing center. We obviously ask that when you take the exam that you not share the exam with anybody else. So we don't allow any note-taking, any books inside, any computers inside. You know, it's a standard industry practice. But you know, we want to make sure that if you're having a hard time with the exam, then the next person after you will have a hard time too. After all, oh, why should they be any easier than you were? Okay, system administration and developer are the 2 exams that we have available, and you see them right up there. You take 1 exam each for the Puppet Professional certification or the Puppet Certified Developer. Now, one thing to point out is that these certifications do not expire. So some certifications you have for a year or less or more, and then they expire. We've decided deliberately not to do that. Instead, we've put the year after it. So if you get certified today, you get Puppet Professional Certified 2013. That's your certification for life. Now, I venture to say that in 2075, when you apply and you put your Puppet Professional 2013 on the resume, it may not have as much weight as it does today. So you may want to renew that certification, but you have it for life. Each certification has 1 exam. The exam takes 90 minutes. It costs $200. That's not because we want to make money, although I do like that, but it's really, that's what we pay the testing center. And the exam is based on both Puppet Open Source and Puppet Enterprise. So the question comes up, do you have to know Puppet Enterprise to pass the exam? It helps. It helps because some of the questions are Puppet Enterprise specific. However, in the Puppet Professional exam, it is less than 10% of the questions are Puppet Enterprise specific. And in the Puppet Developer exam, it's less than 3% is Puppet Enterprise specific. So if you don't know Puppet Enterprise at all, first of all, you can guess. You don't get points taken off for guessing wrong. Second of all, you can pass even if you get every single one of the Enterprise specific questions wrong. You can also pass if you get them right, but whatever. Puppet Developer. That exam currently is in beta. Beta meaning that we're still testing it and making sure that we have a really good exam that tests for industry knowledge. The good news about that is that right now, if you take a Puppet developer exam, you write to us, we send you a voucher, the exam is free. It doesn't cost you anything other than going to the testing center. The bad news is that while it's in beta, you have to test every single question that we've ever written so that we can evaluate whether it's a good question or not. So right now the exam takes a little longer, 4.5 hours, but it's free. So, you know. Anyway, it also is based on Puppet open source and enterprise. Again, less than 3% of the questions are enterprise specific. And you see the technologies that are being tested there. And yes, you do need to know Ruby for a Puppet developer exam. So why beta? Why is it so long? Well, right now we've written 195 questions. We need 60 for the exam, so we are anticipating that we'll probably throw away a third of our questions. And we want to make sure that the questions we throw away are the ones that are really stupid. And while I always have an opinion, I would much rather know whether you think they're stupid than whether I think they're stupid. So that's why we ask you to test it. We will give it to you for free. And then once we have 100 people who have passed the exam, we evaluate which ones were the ones that are most indicative of people really knowing their stuff. Okay? And then in the end, we'll have 2 exams of 60 questions each. So the bad news right now is if you take the developer exam, it'll be 195 questions. The good news is you don't have to pay for it. All right, so enough talk about what this exam is all about. Here's what I would like to do. You see in front of you one of the sample questions from the practice exams. I have 5 from the professional exam, 1 from the developer exam. I have to warn you, these questions are not on the exam, okay? So if you memorize this, it will not help you in the exam. Also, if we find a problem with this question, I will take note of it, but that's not actually on the exam. So the exam questions are like this, but different. All right, so who can tell me, and by the way, I have Jeff and Andy here, A, to deliver the t-shirt, and B, to verify that the answer is correct. Okay, Andy will verify if the question is right. You've been asked by a senior administrator to test Puppet code before it moves into the next stage of the development cycle. They have told you to test against the testing Puppet environment. How would you override the Puppet's agent's configuration environment and address the special environment from the CLI? A, use Puppet agent -- testing. B, use Puppet agent -- env testing. C, use Puppet agent -- test. And please raise your hand, by the way, otherwise I will never figure out who said it first. Use Puppet agent -- environment testing. Yes, right there in the center. Yes. So, which one? A, B, C, or D? Okay, well, let's take a look. Hang on. I'm almost here. That's not working. But anyway, it is D. What size t-shirt would you like? XL. XL. That would be this one. Okay, next question. What is a Puppet role that you can configure during the Puppet Enterprise installation? A, store configs. B, virtual resources. C, mcollective. D, console. Yes. D, console is correct. Yes. What size t-shirt would you like? Small. Okay, good. That's small right there. Yep. All right. Question number 3. Which method of encryption is used to secure the transport between the Puppet agent and the master? A, DES, B, SSL, C, SSH, D, AES. Yes, all the way in the back. B, SSL, that is correct. What size t-shirt would you like? Medium. Okay, that would be that one right there. Yep. By the way, the t-shirt is the same t-shirt that you get when you get certified. The first 100 people get a t-shirt, first 200 actually get a t-shirt saying certified. It says puppet certification. It has a clever little thing on the back. It's clever because I came up with it, thank you. It's the same t-shirt. However, just because you have the t-shirt, you can dress like a certified person, but you won't be certified to take the exam. Okay, puppet professional exam number 4. Which attribute would you use to make a service resource start automatically when booting up? A, ensure, B, require, C, enable, or D, on boot? Yes?
Enable. D. Enable, C.
Okay, Andy? Yes, I agree. What size t-shirt would you like?
Extra, extra large?
Yeah, that one right there. Okay, one more professional question left. Hopefully you can read that. Yeah, that works a lot better on your screen than on mine. I won't read it all. But you have here a manifest, or a part of a manifest anyway, and some dependencies. And if you refer to the manifest, which one of the 4 options below describes or represents the resource relationship in the manifest? So A, B, C, or D?
C.
Okay, we have 1 vote for C. Andy is our final verdict on this one. I know which answer I think it is, yes. Okay, so who here thinks A? B? C? And D? Okay, all right. Well, the answer is B. So, Eric, you'll have another chance when I come to Spotify, so I'll exclude you from this one. So who had said B? And don't all raise your hand, I'll know. Okay, up there, what size t-shirt? Large or extra large? We have a large left, yeah. Okay, who said B and is a medium? Go. And who else said B and is a large? Okay. Keep your hands up so that Andy knows where to deliver them. All right. Last question. This one is from the practice exam of the developer exam. And since it's a little bit more difficult, the grand prize, it's not signed, although I can't sign it, not that it does you any good, but Puppet Developer Exam sample question. If you look at the statement, and it's executed in an M-collective agent, which 3 keys, 3, you have to select 3, will be sent to the reply to the client. So A, B, C, D, E, there's 5 choices here, 2 of them are wrong, 3 of them are right. You have to get all 3 of them right to get the book. Okay, there's a hand back there. A, C, and E, you are correct. So that was in the back there. Can you raise your hand over there? There we go. So, good news and bad news. The good news is that these questions at all seem like there's something that you would know. They are at the same level as the exam questions. The bad news is, as I said, these are not on the exam itself. So you may know these and come to the exam and not know any of the other ones. Not my fault, sorry. But if you think that these questions are about the same level as your knowledge, I would highly encourage you to go test and earn your puppet certification. If you felt like none of the none of the professional questions at all sounded familiar, then I would highly encourage you to go to our website and look at some training options. And in the end, you too can have this lovely certificate hanging on your wall, and more importantly, you can put on your resume that you are in fact Puppet certified and no longer certifiable. So what are some resources for certification? We have step-by-step descriptions on our website. You can sign up right there for more notifications. You can have the details on the certification, not the certification exam itself, sorry. There's practice exams there, certification sign up, and frequently asked questions. If you are looking for some more resources, there is the Learning Puppet tutorial. Some of you had the chance yesterday to go through that tutorial in our tutorial room upstairs. There's the Learning Puppet VM you can download and play with yourself. You can download Puppet Enterprise and manage 10 notes for free. You can look at our docs, our Forge is available, and Puppet Training is available. Speaking of Puppet Training, one thing that I'm very excited about, and this is hopefully a little bit legible for you, we have a new member of the training family. So all of you probably know that we have public training classes where you can sign up and attend as an individual person. We have private training classes where we come to you and we deliver training. We also now have a third member that is online training. Online training basically will consist of a number of small lessons that you can access either for free or for a fee. In the beginning, they're all going to be free. But they're going to be talking about things such as Puppet, Puppet Enterprise, components, and the list that you see there, Hiera, Reza, some of the more specific topics that perhaps you wouldn't see in a regular class, but that you might be interested in. So highly encourage you to go to our website, puppet.com education, and take a look at some of our online training options. So for instance, not right now, we're just starting out with this, so be patient with us. We have one module in there, and what is Puppet? Hopefully, if you've been here, you've been spending the last 2 days listening to our lectures, you know what is Puppet, but if you have somebody in your company and they say, why did you spend 2 days there? What is it you want to do? You can point them to this, and within 3 minutes, it will explain to them what is Puppet, what does Puppet do for them, and why should they care? And they can look at it on their own screen. There's also where the links are for the Learning Puppet VM and for the tutorial. And as we go along, we'll be adding more content. The next one that we'll be having on there is how to use the Forge and be successful with it. And we'll be adding more and more content. I would like to ask you that if you have specific topics that are of interest to you, send me a message, Ralph at puppetlabs.com, and let me know so that I can make sure that we add those to our plans for the future. Any questions? Yes?
Inside the book and the tutorials on the website, can you buy official training courseware?
So the question is, can you buy the training courseware? Right now the training courseware only comes when you actually take the training course itself. But as we flesh out more and more online modules, there will be some online modules that you can buy and take on at your own pace. Any other questions? Yes?
Will the online training actually be something like Coursera, which you can follow complete fundamentals training?
Eventually, yes, but it will take us a while to get there. It'll be piece by piece. Yeah. Yes?
Will the online course fill up to the full curriculum, or will always be a delta from the classes?
Okay. So similar question to what we just had is will the online curriculum ever be at the same level as the curriculum and teach everything that the curriculum has? Possibly. It depends on what kind of demand we see from people. In the beginning, I really see it more as filling in some of the niches that the courses don't fill in, right? So for instance, Razor, we may never have an extensive Razor lesson in our regular classroom curriculum, but for those people who want to learn more about it, we might have an online lesson in addition to our classroom instruction. But you know what? If we have a lot of demand for it in the future, could we go that direction? Absolutely. That's where I need you guys' feedback. Any other questions? Yes?
Does the public exam reflect the version of
Okay, good question. Will the Puppet exam reflect the version of Puppet? So right now we say that the exams are based on Puppet 2.x, actually 2.5 and greater. We have tried as much as possible. Puppet Enterprise 2.5, thank you. We have tried as much as possible to make the questions version agnostic, so that if you know something about version 2, it should also be applicable to 3. Now, that's not always possible, but as much as possible we're trying there for 2 reasons. One is because we want to teach you what it will help you years from now on, and 2, because our software changes often enough that we don't want to constantly change the exam on you. So, yes, there are some questions that are version specific. As much as possible, however, we try not to make it, and if the version changes to the point where the exam is no longer relevant, then we'll be changing the exam. Okay, any other questions? Well, in that case, thank you very much, and I hope to see all of you in training and certification.